March, as soon as the snow's gone.
It's gonna be November, December.
Come on now, because I already have issues with the snowbanks. I'm not looking forward to that. Crazy.
For Christmas, right?
Say the first,
Well, look, that's a legit question. There's no construction going on. It's November 15th.
Yeah.
18th, we're today, 23rd today.
She was.
I mean, as long as there's no snow, there's construction. I understand that, yeah.
I have a big push right now. I had lots of stuff. Everybody's trying to get finished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. That's been going on forever there.
Forever and ever.
You know what, I haven't talked to the guys about
And
it.
Biggings, and one of my very good customers lives on the corner of Biggings and Clean.
Mhm.
It's been a long haul for that poor
Mhm.
senior.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they did everything now, right?
Mhm.
So, our water mains.
Over construction, yeah, so that was a big,
where else? I think that's pretty much the most difficult one, or the most
Yeah,
long, intensive one.
we have some holes on Tilly, but I think they're supposed to be done this week. So.
I did notice the McDonald Avenue got done.
Mhm.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's my thoroughfare. I was like, oh, look, I'm not bottoming out. Look at that. Right?
I was,
I'm not bagging the back into my car.
I was me at the end of all stairs.
Right? I don't mean to drive so fast, but generally I'm rushing.
So we have 4 people, I think, right now,
We need one
which
more.
means we need one more.
Yes,
Well,
Sam did confirm that he's coming.
Okay.
Joe said tentative.
Here's the voice. Also, let's hope those voices.
And the mayor might be here before fall.
Okay. Well, we'll have them meet just up there. I'm sure.
Do you want to tell us?
All right. I think some of what we have today is an information piece, so if we are short, we will give a couple minutes, but if we are, we'll probably move to some of those that are just information pieces and capture minutes. And then we can do for the decisions. So that works. This is like the time, got a half an hour to get most of our business and our last meetings early. We'll give them another minute or two.
So,
I think what you've accomplished with that project is a highlight for us, so I would love them to be able to hear it, so.
yeah, okay.
But in the event they don't, if they're not here in a couple minutes, then.
so I have a quick question. Today we are, the mandate is to present stuff to the mayor
It's
about
a
what we
discussion.
want to spend our money on, or it's a discussion?
Just a discussion.
Okay, good, because I got a nice discussion. Been preparing
So-
that discussion for a month.
So I thought what we do when he gets here is introduce everybody, because he may not know everybody on the board. We could talk about what the goals are. We're trying to do is create some alignment between the city and EDC in terms of project moving forward, new mayor, potential new mandates, so I'm looking at. And then I think he had a few things he wanted to say. He's done that and create some next steps. Yeah, is that all right?
Just a general meeting.
He's Kim.
Just make.
Correct.
This is crazy. When I walk over here, I feel like I can't see the ground.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, we're floating. Crazy, I never noticed that.
Robin, you can't accept minutes, you can't approve minutes, so that, with things like that, you just defer. But from an information perspective, there's no decision to be made, so there's no problem.
So do you want me to leave that with my? Live stream.
Live stream.
Minimal.
Okay.
I'm thinking we're gonna do Dan, if they're not here, and then just so that we can free Dan up, so still have.
Yeah.
It was lunch with Donovan.
Fair enough, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on
Hey, we got quorum.
Hey,
Sam. Thank you, Sam.
Well, George on his way too. Okay.
Not very good. No. Seems like a trend when my son plays A, so that's house league and house league A or whatever. And we have 4 A teams in his age group. Most of the other towns have one. Like, Timmins, like bigger centers do, big centers. And so they go there and these kids are just like huge and there's one team that they're selecting and they just get crushed. Like we started the week off with, my son's a goalie. So we had 3 full lines, 15 kids. By the time we were done the weekend, there was 5 of them, like slings and all the rest of them. And 10 kids actually on the bench, so it was a rough weekend.
What age group?
It's under 15, but it's the 13 and 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Right? And so most of the other teams they played against were 14-year-olds. This team actually, so 2/3 of them. were 13. So it's just and it's the first group in the hitting,
Yeah.
so they just started contact. And so, yeah, like there was a team we played where 6 of the kids were over 6 feet. My son's 5 foot 3. I don't think even guys are on. Like there's a couple of them.
I've done, my daughter.
Wow.
They
Big up.
got the goal.
Story, it's a lot of work.
He did, yeah. Well, the one game they won 1-0. He had over 40 shots. His team got
Being a hero.
Then he didn't let it in the end. So.
You didn't get the game started.
Oh, no, we got that one. But then there was a 7-0 and then 6-3, 6-1. And a bunch of walking wounded. It wouldn't be a good hockey term if it didn't get threatened, kicked over the towel and all the rest of it, right? Just playing mini sticks and all of the terms. All caught up. Yeah. Okay, so Joe is on his way, but in the interest of time, we're gonna get started with some of the things we need to do, and then we'll turn it over to you, Dan, okay? We'll call the meeting to order. Does anybody have a pecuniary interest other than Stephanie, who has already declared it with respect to the 5 item? Any other pecuniary interest?
No,
Here, Joe. Joe, you got a pecuniary interest on any of the agenda items? No?
no,
Okay, so we need somebody, sorry, the agenda is in front of you as part of the package. We need a mover and seconder that we are resolving that the agenda for the November 23rd EDC executive board meeting. Actually, that shouldn't be executive, it should be board meeting. Be approved as presented. Okay, we got Will. Jerry, you want to get on the agenda? Good. Okay, all in favor? Okay, the minutes are in the package. There's 2 sets of minutes in here. So I'm curious as to why there's 2.
The second set is from our very quick Zoom meeting,
Right.
and for the interest of time for that one, I didn't want us to waste time including.
Smart. Okay, so there's 2 sets of minutes in the package, one from September 20th, the other from October 25th. Looking for mover and a seconder for those minutes. Okay, Sam, Anthony, all in favor? Okay, new business and updates. Stephanie's gonna step out for a sec. Given that it's an open meeting,
Stephanie doesn't actually have to step out, she just can't vote or really contribute to the conversation.
those are the questions that get the door on.
I double checked her before you.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so we're gonna turn this over to Dan Freya from the CDC. And of course, for anybody who's relatively new on the board, we've had an ongoing partnership with the CDC that has really been bearing some fruit for the downtown. And Dan's gonna tell us a little bit about the successes that he's had and where the programs. So over to you, Dan.
Just a little bit of history that, some time ago, the organizations, went back to Paul Skaggs and, we started discussing working together on, putting some money to work in the community generally, small businesses. After some discussion, with all of us, decided why don't we focus on the downtown core. So, we were aware of what the city was doing and we were aware of what the downtown association was doing. So we thought we did a force multiplier and also add a little bit of juice to that situation. So both organizations set aside $500,000, for a total of $1 million for a 2-year period. That was to be lent out to businesses within the city to find their downtown geography. Off we went. So there's several interesting things about it. The EDC portion had a 50% forgivable portion. If the business was certainly survived that year and also hit its performance targets, jobs, etc. So that was extremely attractive, and there was no interest or principal during that time as well. The CDC portion has, we have terms and conditions that have to comply with FedMore. So we just set up regular rules that way. How we could have matched that, we could have done even more creative things, but that's ultimately where we landed on that. I did put some links in there. I had recently read some articles about investing in your small town businesses and local businesses. And then there's some discussion about the multiplier effect of a local business versus, of course, Amazon, and of course, Walmart, and the multiplier is higher for our local ownership, that kind of a business. So I put that in there. Some of the things we were thinking about at the time. So during this about 17 months we've been running this, we have lent out the full amount of 1 million, actually slightly over. There's a little circumstance I described there where there was $10,000 left in that EDC account, and the person needed 55, so we put in those. But we used that 10,000 as part of the financing. So we did that to 14 loans in the downtown core. So we actually used the full amount of money. Now what's interesting from my world and KPIs and reports I make back to FedMore, job creation, job maintenance are things that that I have to be reporting on all the time. And so in this period, the loans that we made, we impacted 96 jobs. So some were retained, some were newly created. The cost per job would be about $10,700, which is low when you think about it. Sure, when you go out of home steel, or probably 200,000 capital investment to add in your job. So we're in our own little world, but it's fairly efficient. And some of the clients actually went out and leveraged some money. So we're waiting on a client, large NOHFC application. So if all things go through as we planned, that 1 million should end up being about 1.6 million invested in the downtown. So it was pretty successful. To give you some sense of, so the CDC's contract, our group's contract with FedNor is to create about 60 jobs. It's our annual target. So in this case, we did 96. So selfishly, I thank you for that. Just come off my bag. But I think again, in combination with all the other activities going on in the downtown and you're describing, it's something that I think is additive to what investments are being made, including your own private investments. So I think it was a very good project for us all the way around. Most of them were expansions and not with one startup. So that first round is how that went. And eventually, like following this meeting, we'll write a press release describing what was done here, and I think it'll be a good story for sure. So all the loans are being paid at a client except for one, which is a small business. It was a $20,000 loan, or $10,000 each. They didn't make it through the COVID period, so they're in our normal collections, and we negotiated with them. And they'll pay us over time. So we'll expect to fully recover that. Interesting thing is some of the clients that were the loans made a year ago, they're starting to pay their loans back. So interest is starting to accrue into the EDC account and principal. So that comes in. That's an interesting thing for you. It creates a bit of a decision you have to make, either to pay it back or just leave it to accrue. And the other thing is, so like I was estimating about $35,000 once these things all start to tumble in, will come into that account annually. We will start to see some of the forgiveness portions start to come in. So these loans were made over time, so some of them are starting to achieve that annual year date. So we'll start to see some of those things start to happen. So far, none of them have achieved that level, so we haven't forgiven anything as of yet. So basically, it's been a really successful thing. I did mention here, Bob and I were chatting about a second round, our CBC is interested in that. There may be some changes, we were talking about eliminating the forgiveness portion. That was pretty generous, to say the least, and, that's something he and I, bounced around between us. To me, the period of no principal, no interest is still pretty attractive, especially as we're to a high interest rate period of the moment. How long this will go, it's hard to see it being sustainable for 4 years, but that's where we're at. As an element of that, there was an internship we were going to apply for, that was been approved now. So we will, I'll do the actual recruiting. So there's a few things that we've got this person on the schedule to do. And help us with our business plan, help us with, I think there's a couple other activities, gathering information from the downtown core in association with the business association, we already studied, and what we will put that person to work there. Also helping clients with their business plans on an ongoing basis. We'll teach them, train them in how we do our business, and then we'll start to introduce them to clients and do research, and it could be anything. What I do in just the way Chat GPT is doing marketing research on any subject you can imagine, where we didn't have that capacity before. So these are the kind of things we will introduce them to, helping with cash flows, stuff. So that's what we plan to do with that individual. One of the things I mentioned on page 3 of that paragraph is that there is going to be a conference of Community Futures Ontario. Those are my cohorts, will be here next June. One of the awards we do have is a financial innovation award. And if the group was interested to enter that for the competition, I talked to some people, and nobody's done this quite the way we've done it. But I think the other thing we have going for us is we have tangible numbers and stats and jobs that we can point to and say the economic impact is that. That's as we can count it. So I'll pause there and see if you feel good about I guess we'll look backwards. Entering our project into that, and I'm going to do that before June, and then we will be hiring that intern in due time, and then if there is, and this be something to do later, and I'm not here to discuss if there is a second round with this same project.
Yeah, we can take that back before this.
Yeah.
Anybody have any issues with presenting the project? I think probably highlights the city, highlights the things we're doing. Can't see that being a bad thing, right?
I think it's a good idea. I think it's good exposure, and yeah, that'd be a good idea.
The only is that it's EDC is to that appropriate names. I always get confused with the group, it's the same group. But anyway, this to get to the story, we'll forget who we were in the first place. But then I'll do that. Okay. Great. That's true.
Yeah, given the success of the program as you described it, and then you look at the details of, food, health, and so forth. Assuming hypothetically speaking that we have to allocate funds in priority, when we weigh the benefits potentially of the contest program that we plan to get off the ground, and the program that we now have implemented, we have some experience with it. You indicated the number of jobs, 96, which is more than what you're required to.
I think it's more than our target was.
You have to choose one or the other. Which one would you choose? I know that's a tough question, but in my mind, given what I read and what you said.
For the ease of it, you carry on and have and announce a second round and that kind of thing. Probably that would be the easier of the two. But for some impact, and when the business plan contest is run with some serious dollars to play, there's a lot of value to that as well.
Are you suggesting we should do one or the other?
No, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm trying to get a picture, overall picture of what's happening with the downtown it would be helpful, Tom, if we had some ideas as to what the city of Sault Ste. Marie is going to do in terms of revitalizing Queen Street. I have absolutely no details of that, because sort of in the blind on that. And so it would be helpful to us to know what the program is with the downtown in general terms. And see how that interplays with what we've done, what the people that we've assisted, and whether that program could work well with what the city plans to do.
Right.
And so, you know, if you're gonna be a few dollars short to do it right downtown, then maybe that's a consideration. And in terms of weight, where we put $500,000.
Right.
That's my personal observation.
I think that kind of speaks to the theme that we have today, with the mayor coming in, trying to make sure that we stay aligned with activities and what the city's doing, what we're doing, ensure that there's direction. Right? And so if you're doing a lot of work in the downtown, for help facilitates investment in businesses in the downtown.
For your next meeting, we can provide information and do a little presentation on what's going on now and what the plans are.
Does the downtown association have that information? I'm curious.
They do, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Couple questions for you. The loans that we're giving out, what's the term? 10 years?
No, they've anywhere from 3 to 5. I don't know offhand anything went beyond that.
Okay. No, I was just, the reason I was asking was you mentioned P and I coming in of about 35,000.
Yeah.
If I do back of the napkin, or if everybody got forgiven half, then it's 250,000. A 5-year notice, 50 plus interest. So I wondered how we came up with 35.
Well, I was writing along, and I think even I had kids with the same kind of conclusion that you did.
Okay.
I was doing the math. And I'm, okay, that's you know, it's I would imagine within starting next year, the full portfolio will start to pay, and it's around 9%. It's you're looking at it. If nobody was forgiving you, they'll go 45,000 in interest, and then principal would be smaller because they're all 28 payments. And so I was just ballparking it to say there's money coming to you, and my best guess is that they'll do a spreadsheet.
Okay.
When might we get that, Dan, in terms of a breakdown of the people that we advance funds to, give balances outstanding?
Well, those will be, you could have that, I could get that for you. I have a amortization schedule. So I would know that customer 14 hasn't made any payments out of it yet. But customer 2 or 3, I know we know their position has.
Could you anonymize that for us? I'm not sure that we need to know that it's, you know, Joe.
Yeah. I'll check and see with
Could have
my
customer
administrator.
to, well,
But that's confidential. I mean, that would be a discussion as to, because Mr. and Mrs. X came forward and then they have another plan that they want to continue with. I think we should have an itemized statement, financial statement.
yeah, I agree. I just don't know if we want to know all the specific individuals that are parties to the loans on the board, or do we want to just.
Well, then, you know,
That's
this
a
report,
question.
we didn't put the names in, and Rob and I discussed it and feel it was maybe not appropriate, so we left them out in this report. But the report could, every 6 months, tell you that, you know, client number 7 is his original loan. This is his balance currently. Give you that pretty easy.
Yeah, we can take it. We can take it off, or we can take it to internal discussion.
Yeah, I think that we have a responsibility of oversight. It's pretty difficult to conduct oversight if you don't know the itemized aspects of a financial statement. That's my concern. If that were being camera, it would not be public information. We should go.
Let's take that one. Let's take that one into a different discussion. I think it's.
Yeah, but it could be done.
We have to do that internally anyways.
Well, absolutely,
Yeah.
particularly when they're in arrears. Well, we usually don't present that to the board. We will say these are the winter arrears. everybody's performing and. Yeah, that's a level of operations that are for.
But thank you very much for your help in implementing this program. We're indebted to your organization and appreciate you working with us and us working with you.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I think the collaboration adds a dimension to it for sure. And then working in just, when these things come together with the city, and that's just a bonus to the project.
And thank you for your good notes of all of it.
Well, otherwise,
I think we still had another section to go to, right?
well, I just, I wasn't gonna put this in or leave it out, but certainly, mentioned to Rob, and we were short staffed as well, so we better hang on here, and now the ICU is going down Montreal over hill a little too fast, and done that. That's kind of the way I started to feel, so we started, let's hang on, and push it back. We have some intern to help us with something to delegate to. But Joe and Rob and I did kind of run through it, and you can sort of see the ideas that we had. And the interesting thing was there would be a committee to oversee the entire thing. We envisioned it where we would have a stage one, and the people would provide a framework of their idea, and maybe go through that. The CFPC staff would go through that. Basically, the ones that were applicable, we asked for a full-blown business plan, so that would come in. So we meet some of them out. Then the second step would be that full business plan that would be reviewed, like we would review all of our loans, and then those would be taken to the investment review committee of the CDC to see if they fund them at all. We might as well find out because we begin to do later. One of this craft and we're kind of stuck. So we bring them to that group. That group would investment review committee would review that and say, yeah, these are the ones we find most appealing in terms of we got a little scoring system we were kicking around. That would come back to the evaluation committee, and they would know where we stood, and then they would look at them as well. From there, though, we would run a competition where there would be a bear pit, excuse me, where that person or team would make a presentation to that group, and that group would give them a thorough going over, I suspect, and I imagine. So we dropped up some weighting, some scores of weighting of what was important. So that's kind of the process we were going through. We wanted to do it over a couple of years. A lot of discussion we had of what if there was a small loan, a big loan, this loan. So we actually did create different category limits, so that somebody needed 250, that's what they would compete at. If somebody needed 100, they would compete at that level. So we suggest that, that's where we're at that point in time. We run it over a couple of years. So we run a couple of these things. And then there was a couple of things that were we nailed down, is that there was no forgivable portion in this particular competition. So it's a straight up prize. We would go no principal interest for 3 years. At that point in 3 years, this could be convertible to equity. It could be just paid out. Finally pay us out, or it would revert to a normal loan like our downtown revitalization loans, standard security that CDC puts on things. So it might be a mortgage, it might be a GSA, whatever it happens to be. So that's the gist of what we would do. So once we've got our person on board, basically take this document, review it. Is this still what we want to do? Yeah, and then go to the implementation phase. Now the easy thing about it's interesting is we were looking for companies to take it to the next level. And so I just happened to see some research on that is economic gardening, where the chances of them being successful is obviously higher because they already exist. So it actually good thinking that we were following the design. So that's what we just get our interns in place, and we'll recalibrate.
I think I mentioned before, like Katie Elliott from our office.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so marketing is how do you do it? I don't know, with the tourism destination, that was done by pros. It was really slick. It was really good. So having some of that kind of marketing skill would be great.
So, any other questions for Dan? Everybody okay with the revised timeline on that, this design contest, given the constraints, EDC and?
Yeah, run out of horse time.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate your help.
We'll get the name, highlights of the presentation.
Okay.
And how many jobs you created.
Well, sure. I think if you have, the collaboration we have, so. I won't stick my nose in further than that.
Thanks very much, Dan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam.
Have a good lunch.
Dan's got to dig in his dogs.
Yeah.
Gotta get him in there. So welcome.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming. So thought we'd start off with just some introductions so you know who's in the room and who's online. So you know who you're dealing with, and then we'll talk a little bit about sort of the goals maybe for the discussion. Give you a chance to come up with some of your thoughts in terms of where you think things are going, and then maybe together we can try to figure out some next steps in terms of. Okay, so does that work? Okay, Rob Brewer, President and CEO of EDC.
Stephanie Harmon, owner and operator of Stephanie's Joy.
Robin Williams.
Sam Bucket for Great Max. For go private there, please. And online we have Jerry. Did you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute, Jerry.
Sound great though.
There we go. Jerry Fowler. I have a company called Manna International, and I'm sitting on a farm in Michigan waiting for Thanksgiving dinner. So it's good to be with you, though.
We've got turkey sandwiches.
Well, they used to have some turkeys here, but the turkey flock is a bit decimated right now. But that's okay; they'll get more.
Oh, good. So the thought in inviting you was that I think the city and the EDC are both doing some of the same sort of, or we have some of the same goals. And it's important for, I think, us as a board to understand where the city's sort of long-term vision is. See if there's projects that we have that we can try to emphasize that fit into that to try to help them. And I think we've seen with Dan Frea's work with the CDC and the partnership that we've done there, that working together, we've been able to accomplish a lot more than, and I think it's what they're doing. And so that theme sort of applies the same with respect to the EDC and the city. So I think we're sort of interested in your thoughts in terms of, relatively new mayor, every year, but what your thoughts are and you think.
Yeah, thanks. We had a brief chat yesterday about it as well, but for those might have been a couple. Thanks for having me, and it is true that it's a new term of council and new challenges, although I would say that the economic challenges right now are not what they have been historically. They're good challenges to have, like workforce development, things like that, not whether or not the steel plant is going to stay open for the balance of the term. So we're fortunate in that respect that we can focus on some of the good things we've done. The way, in my view, and I'm just one of 11 on council, so I think that it's important at some point to do some strategic planning with council on, or involve them perhaps in a strategic planning exercise if you're undertaking one in any event, to give feedback on what the collective want to see as the priorities. But I don't think it's any real surprise from my perspective anyways, that the focus should be on new long-term sustainable enterprises or either private or partnered enterprises. I mentioned in our brief discussion yesterday that the port is one that I would like to see sussed out to a greater degree and see if there's any role that the EDC can play in facilitating coming to that, whether it's through a partnership, or funding, or through contribution, or for some other way that we can be of assistance. I know through EDC anyways, that there's lots of work going on, but Algoma, the city, there's lots of work going on with Algoma. We can use that opportunity, or the opportunities where they're leaning on us for things to work with them to get a bit of land for the port. I think that would be great, much in the same way that the Airport Development Corporation has found good success over the 30 years it's been around, 25 years it's been around. I think a port development corporation would something that EDC could bring to life if we can get to the point where we've got the ability to have one built. So that would be, I would say, a major one if we could accomplish it. And then there are, in my view, ways that the EDC can assist on not run up the mill type things, but obviously one of our priorities is workforce development, one of those housing, both of which fit into our economic development priorities, because we can't bring people here if they don't have a place to live. We can't fill the jobs that are vacant if we don't have the workforce to fill them. So if there is a role for EDC to play in those two specific cogs, I think that there is a willingness to find a way to partner. And I think the way that the Tourism Development Board has worked closely with Tourism Society is a good path forward. I think that they provide, now they've got their own money to spend, so that's a separate issue, but they certainly, you were on board, I think, Joe, for a couple of years, provide the type of feedback, input, and advice on tourism matters that I hope that they can get to the point of providing. Now, they've got a lot more applications, so it's a lot more frequent that they are providing that advice, but if we could make even regular reporting on here's what we've done this quarter, or for this half year or this year to council, I think it would give council a better sense of your activities throughout the year. That's 4 or 5 things in 4 or 5 minutes. So that's very high level. Probably all needs to be sussed out to some greater degree, but those are my initial thoughts.
Okay, so if I've captured it correctly, I think the Port Development Corporation or the development of the port and how that housing and workforce development are critical activities that have to be undertaken to allow for it. And that an advisory roles
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
We have just heard from Dan Priya that they provide funding between CDC and EDC, $1 million. As a result of that investment, we helped 14 businesses on the street, administrations and so forth. And there's been some significant return for that investment. And the cost to us compared to the city in terms of manpower, labor, and so on is 0. So it's 100% invested on the street what we put together. It would be helpful to the EDC because we have a limited source of funds. If the program works well and we can partner with the property owners, partner with the federal people with funding, and utilize their staff, it would be helpful to us if we could get some additional support in some manner and fashion that works within the parameters and the scope of work that you wanted to live the downtown area and Main Street. If housing, for example, is a big issue in the city, and we have all these homes that are boarded up in the downtown area. What's the plan with respect to these properties we demolish them, we make them available for, you know, homes that would be subsidized, somewhere in terms of rents and so forth. And, you know, we can move in that direction and make, attract funding from other sources, especially province now, or the feds, but more like the province. I don't know if there's any plan for that. I don't want to raise the hospital issue, that's a big issue that well beyond that scope. But I think that the single family homes that I voted up, I think we have to do something about that.
Yeah, I think it achieves the, one of the goals, which is housing development. So either you, I don't know what the right path is, either you demolish them or you bring them up to a standard that they can be used again. But I do think there is a role for EDC to play in that space with the limited funds you have. And if we have to look at, you know, potentially ensuring that there's a constant flow of funds into some pot, that if we can get a proper program structure, things like, for example, and I mentioned the hospital, and you had mentioned the hospital is way too big of an trust to tackle, but the pulp tower, I don't think is. I think that's a spot where a strategic investment of some amount of dollars, some relatively reasonable amount of dollars, could get that to a point where we've got the asset there instead of what we've currently got, which is the other building. And when there are properties like that, I know DSAP, for example, invests in, now these are one-off small houses, so they do, but invests in properties where it will protect other assets that they own. And the private sector to a large degree does as well. I know Steve Bersham has bought a number of buildings in the James Street neighborhood to protect the assets that he's got there. So if there is a place where we can do that together, I think that helps advance a number of our goals. Whether it's to bring an existing building up to standards, which then keeps it in our stock, or to demolish it and allow it to be redeveloped.
Well, you know, I think, all due respect, that the city of Sault Ste. Marie has a serious responsibility to either demolish these properties, put them up for tax sale, do whatever is necessary to be able to develop those properties. And there's happening about a embarrassing amount of work for Plaza. When people come on, another guy up in Bonsall, and what you see there is a disaster. And it's not going to get any better.
That's one of the substations.
Forget like I said.
No, 100%. In fact, the building that was torn down, the steam baths building, there's one that appears to be occupied. Then there's a vacant one, but I agree. I mean, we've just sped up the timelines on tax sales from 3 years to 2, so that should. So after that 2-year process, then you register. Then it takes another potentially year to 18 months. So, but instead of taking 4.5 years now or 5 years, it's only going to take 3.5 years. So that's a statutory process that we're kind of bound to, but we have created the demolition fund to hopefully have some money to do some of this stuff because, yeah, it's a disaster. There's, I think we had a report of 600 houses in the community that are below the necessary standard for the building, and there's 30,000 houses, so that's like 2% of our housing stock needs to be completely redone, either internally or demolished and rebuilt.
If those properties become available, I think that you could put together 4 or 5 companies, if you will, who would be helpful in developing them and contributing to the community. And there's a lot of talent in the city in that respect. And
So maybe we're the bridge there, Phil. Maybe we're the ones that put together, here's some thoughts, here's the way we think we can do it, here's the funding we would need. You know, obviously we don't want to pick winners, so we have to do it in a fair way, but putting together that strategy and plan, I think, make a lot of sense in terms of providing advice back to the city.
Yeah, there is a housing task force with the report coming on December 18th from the housing task force that looks at moving forward to advance housing in the city. The city has applied to the Housing Accelerator Fund. CMHC is up to the federal government, so we're expecting, hoping for good news on that, and that'll be a significant incentive that we'll be able to have. And then the province has the Building Faster Fund that we're eligible for by committing to the housing target. So the city will be able to come to the table with some incentives to do that, and I think as well, he has a great question for some of these properties will help to make redevelopment appealing, because you can get 3, maybe 4 units on a lot that was once with single family, up to 4 units on that lot, which will be an attractive incentive for developers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another thing just to tie into what Dan's here doing, we were looking at investing, we have now invested about $1 million, which amplified, I think, to 1.6 into the downtown to create, more robust businesses, a bit of a beautification strategy, which should assist with property values, which should assist with the ability to do that. If the project value or not, property value is not there, it's not going to get done. So I think it's probably multi-pronged, and so this is probably one where, if you are asking for us to advise, we could probably put together some thoughts from city experts or city leaders, come up with potential strategy. So might be a nice one.
I just wanted to mention a real life story. I have a building, I won't get into specifics, but a young fellow wants to buy it and convert to student housing, which we all know is a huge need for it. And we were just having money because I financed it. Banks don't want to touch it. The big banks won't touch it. Local credit unions are all the same boat. We checked every institution. So I did reach out to Dan. And Dan did say that they made a program that they can do something where they can actually finance and search two purposes. One is to help someone buy a place. The other is to house the students. So, and it's been a real problem. It's I've never run into this before, where the banks, one bank, National Bank, will finance student housing, minimum $2 million. Right, so if you think your average small investor that would want to enter this market, it's difficult. Maybe that's where I can step in and say, well, we can assist you with certain parts of the program. So maybe it would help get some of these homes fixed as well. They're sitting empty because it is a challenge.
Okay, so I think what we're hearing is there's a few challenges that maybe need to be looked into to actually come up with some ideas around.
Yeah, so that was a perfect lead-in for my suggestion. Said property is and has been available for quite some time, and that would be a perfect property for a long-term recovery facility. I believe that the city is in great need of longer-term facilities. We have the Northway, which is a 14-day to a 30-day program, but statistics show that when you have addicts together for a longer period of time, that the outcome for Sault Ste. Marie would be beneficial, because now these people would be contributing members of society. So said property is primo, but having talked about all these derelict homes, I mean, even if the EDC and the city and whoever the other funding bodies were to participate in this, then someone, I mean, I have people in particular that I know, but there would be an option for funding, which would help the people to create these long-term facilities, recovery houses, for lack of a better term. It's really important in the city. And being a owner of a business on Queen Street, I see it daily. I deal with these people daily, and I really think that there's an opportunity for us to help these people. But someone has to help us. Someone has to help the people who are willing to help these people.
Yeah, I think that's been the whole challenge. I don't want to speak for the city, but I know it hasn't traditionally fit into the city's responsibility to do these things. Yeah, really, it's the place where everything seems to be landing. Right?
Yeah, we try to avoid getting into funding healthcare services because we can't fund healthcare services for one constitutionally, and because we don't have the money to do it. I mean, we can get derelict buildings, right? That's like very basic challenge that, you know, might cost 20 grand a building. That should be nothing. And sort of then take that several steps further to say, okay, find a building, make it work for this purpose, and then assist with the operations of it. I think it's something that the province really needs to be in the game of and not.
So you
I agree, though, it's a problem for our economy that we've got a number of people who don't have the right services. It's just not really a problem that we have any authority or funding to fix.
So does the economic development have the authority to locate a building, or the city to locate a building and leave it to a privatized person to take care of? Purchase, buy?
It'd have to go to tender, the public sale proposal. I think if you make the properties available, to private developers, then you will get some serious reaction. I saw that on North Street a little bit, on a couple of buildings on Plain Street. And part of the problem is the process of getting these properties to streamline that situation. Once the city owns it, or puts it up by sale, it's easy to put it up for proposals.
Yeah. What I think is more appealing than saying we've got this one piece available or that one piece available is to look, for example, on the cat right there right across from the bridge. You know, you've got two derelict and then one in between. So you kind of look at it and say, well, if we got our hands on that piece, and then you're selling a block of 3 properties together where you can really develop something of substance. I think we, well, I think we can talk about that, right? I mean, who does it and what's the best way to do it? Like you said, if there are 4 or 5 organizations that can come together and make it so that it's a clean service piece of property, then you've got something.
It's probably a matter of looking, and then this is probably where the strategy from us comes from, but it's really looking at the value stream. Because the property owner is just gonna look at dollars and cents of developing the property, and having to buy the one doesn't make sense for him. He doesn't do it. From a city perspective, the value is it's a first place that a person coming from Michigan sees. There's value in having that first contact and positive one. From an EDC perspective, it's in our interest to have people want to come to the city and to have positive experiences. So if we tap into some of those other value streams, it might be us going in, spending a few dollars to make it happen for that private and putting together a strategy, making the deal happen. So I think part of it for us is probably looking at our own value, right? And it's probably not just that drive time to run again.
Well, I think we can work with the arrangement that we have with the CDC in terms of commercial properties on Main Street. We can morph that into, let's get into housing and how to invest with private investors and the city to create a situation where A, we have a land, B, we get the capital.
Yeah.
And build cities, build fourplexes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to be build a semi, we have to build a fourplex. Maybe what we have to do is come up with areas that are available and available for investment. We tapped into some of the other value streams to make that. Because right now, the existing value stream, which is private developer walking and doing, isn't working, right? And so we have to figure out what else we can do.
One of the things we just funded on Monday's council meeting was an environmental assessment. That's what it was, environmental assessment on the Gagan property, partially funded by the feds, or the hope is that it will be partially funded by the feds, because for that very reason, it's a piece of property of strategic interest that we want to see developed, and someone else is paying half the bill. So we're going to
supported that too.
Yeah.
That was our last meeting, but yeah, so I think that's something probably as a board, as the EDC, we can take a look at it and come back with some thoughts in terms of how that might work. It certainly gives us some significant purpose.
After the housing report is out, that's probably a good time to look at where the most strategic investments are. We, as a municipality, I think, want to see more dense housing in the downtown area, because it's the only way you're gonna sustainably revitalize your downtown, so that people living in it.
Yeah, just talked about the Port Authority, and over the last 30 years, it's always been on the table, but there hasn't been a will because it wasn't the right time. And it's printed, there's 4 port authorities in Ontario. There's Hamilton, Toronto, Thunder Bay, and Windsor. So I think we can offer, let's say for study costs, we can apply to Heritage Farms or FedNor. So we have the ability to do that, you know, on our own or with the city, but we can leverage. And I know in the past that was always the issue. It needs a major study to even get that plan going. So I think that would be the first step if all the parties agree. But that's something that we can do if we can see and do some leveraging study costs.
I think we have different access to that funding too, right? In the city has. I think that's.
We're separate.
Yeah,
We're a separate corporation, because we can apply.
but there's ones that we can access that I think.
Yeah, there can be things that are, so, you know, it's something, if things align, take another shot.
And you know, you've mentioned that it's been in the talks for 30-some years, and it has been, things haven't aligned, so I think the hope is that we can push out on, because they need us to help them right now. There probably have been other times where we've missed the opportunity to push them correctly. Push them to carve off a little piece of land to say, here's what you can use for a board, and you can develop the plan to do it. And have them impact operations. Whereas the biggest concern. Well, their operations, the expectation is that the footprint of them will shrink, so the physical footprint of them. So hopefully we can use some of that and visualize it.
Jerry, any thoughts on Mike?
No, actually, interesting discussion. The Port Authority, I think there's all sorts of potential if that came to be, that we could facilitate a port that would allow exporting from Sault Ste. Marie instead of shipping stuff to Montreal to export. So there's all that potential is there. Intermodal stuff would cut prices as opposed to trucking to Montreal, trucking to Toronto, repackaging into containers. If we could do that here, we generate a whole bunch of potential income or business potential.
So I think just as a next step to try to transition to that, I think one of the things that we sort of need to know is what are you looking for us to do on that? So is the city doing it? Is there a function you want the EDC to play in it and putting together some of those things? You know, how do we help you? How do we work together? So on the port one, it's complicated.
Yeah, I think first for the city to do, and Tom, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we need to get Algoma to commit the land to us that we need. And then we need to study it. And so that's where I think Bill's comments could be helpful if the EDC is willing to support that. I suspect that the city is willing to support it. That would be step one for the EDCs involved. Right? Generally,
Yeah, we've had some positive discussions about Loma Steel, so I think we'll be able to come back to it in the near future with kind of some thoughts on next steps. We can bounce off the board and see where we want to go on that. Okay. And then on the broader front, we talked, we have council's doing a corporate strategic plan right now. Rick and his team have started developing a new economic development strategy. We'd like to get the EDC board involved in that process to map out, you know, how we want to do that, and then obviously get your thoughts into the economic development strategy. And then I think that can drive out some of the activities that we talked about here. You know, broad strokes, if you say downtown development is there, real estate is there, and then, okay, now let's dive into what are the roles for each organization play, how we work together to achieve those goals.
Good. Yeah, I think we have some good next steps.
thank you everybody for having me.
Thanks for taking the invite.
American Thanksgiving. Right across the border, I can smell the cranberries.
Take care, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
That was 5.2. 5.3 on the agenda is the CDF DGCIP renewal. And Rick, this is just a formality, I understand, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
So that all we're doing here is we are renewing the program, existing program, we changed a couple of words in it to make it a little more accessible. So other than that, the program remains the same, there'll be grants available up to $1,000 or a 3-year tax deferral program. So no change to that.
Any thoughts or concerns? You need us to do anything on this one?
No,
Any
I think
motion?
it's more.
It's an information. Okay, beautiful. I'm not hearing any thoughts or concerns, so we're good with it? Yeah, good. In your package, you'll see a list that Rick had put together with respect to some of the things that the city has with respect to goals that you're working on. And again, I think it was to help facilitate the discussion that we'll have at some point. I don't know if we'll get through today based on time, but in terms of areas that we can play in to kind of help some of the stuff that city staff is doing. We've also now heard from our shoemaker in terms of sort of what his thoughts are from mayor and council. So hopefully we'll put all this together and come back with a good strategy. Yeah, that about right?
Yeah.
Did you want to go through each individual one?
If you want
It
me
seems
to.
self-explanatory.
I think they're self-explanatory. I would just, if you want to, wrap this up, this all ties back into the strategic plan we started to work on.
Yeah.
So this is good information because these were points that we brought up at the last meeting. So it's given us an opportunity to take a look at them and see how they're going to be pulled into the overall plan. So I would suggest in the near future, probably after Christmas, on that season, that we may have to do a special planning session where we can get together as a group and specifically devoted to spending an hour. Here's the rough out strategic plan. Look for input, and at that point, take it back and incorporate it. We're also tied to council coming back with their strategic plan because we have to align to that. Yeah.
Fair enough. Good idea. So, you want to try to, Robin, do you want to maybe try to find a couple hours of our time for that?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're thinking February?
February is probably smart time.
Yeah.
I think by then we know we'll have the council direction because without the council direction, if we get too divergent, we may do a lot of work for that.
Okay. You want to put together a couple hour time frame sometime in February that works with staff and circulate some date stuff. So
Absolutely.
next item up is bylaw 14 review. We actually did a review of this in 2022. And I think we didn't do a wholesome review. I think we actually just modified a particular section. If I remember correctly. As I went through it in detail, there's a whole lot of things in here that likely aren't accurate to the way that this group works today. As an example, the board of directors, the composition of the board, it doesn't mention anywhere in here that I could find on how the board is populated with part coming from the city and part coming from the city, and how many are coming from each, et cetera, et cetera. That's relevant with respect to under MFIPA for boards that have a majority population coming from city council and are automatically considered an institution. Boards that don't have a majority coming from council, like this board, because the majority of actually being elected or being selected through the process of the board. It's not automatically an institution. There's other reasons why it might be an institution, but that's a fairly significant thing we probably want to have identify. So we should also have in here, obviously, how we get them, right? So the thought is there's probably a fairly significant update. And so I just wanted to sort of highlight a few things that I'm thinking need to be reviewed and looked at. And then if anybody else has some that we've looked at. There's references in a number of places to chief executive officer, we don't have a CEO. There's president and vice president. We're now using the term chair and vice chair. So those offices. There's probably officially a president of the corporation with respect to the articles, so we probably have to maintain that for the purposes of officer.
Talks of proxy in there.
Yeah,
Proxy.
vote by proxy, so that's one, yeah. We have, meeting by telephone, but we don't have officially that we can meet by Zoom.
Yeah.
Right, so we clearly are, as we have Jerry online today. But that's something that, you know, we ought to update to ensure that it's valid. We have, with respect to voting, you mentioned the proxy piece. We also mentioned that there's 3 ex officio members of our board. You know, who the ex officio they are.
I think that was the mayor and 2 councilors.
I think that's, might be a holdover too rough from the past.
Oh, no, yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't really know apparently who they are is not a good thing.
Right.
In terms of how you- So, it speaks to remuneration of directors, which we don't have. So probably should, rather than shall receive, should be may receive. And it could be determined at some point, leave it to a future board. And you need to be a member. One of the requirements is to be a member. And this is back in 3 years, if a director fails to become a member within 10 days, well, that's a member. So kudos to Robin on this one, because when we looked at this at the executive meeting last week, Robin said, "Oh, I think it's just a scalpel here." So, so,
Is the city, did the city legal department draft this document?
no, this would be us.
Holdover from the previous economic development corporation.
Yeah,
But when the city abolished it in essence.
Yeah.
And created the creature that we now are. It passed the bylaw with respect to the structure and how it works, that there.
No, there was no bylaw. We took that function in, we worked with the EDC board, and then the EDC board at the time did this update to their existing bylaws on their own. But as we've seen, I think there's a few more things that we need to go back and adjust.
so my thinking on this one, if it works for the rest of the board is why don't I take a first crack at just the updates? I'll send around a marked version to the rest of the board. Take a peek at it and we'll come back with some thoughts. And then maybe we can coalesce around an accurate document next time. And if we feel that we want to send it out for legal review, which we may, we can make that decision next meeting based on having all done a review. Does that make?
Yeah, I think we should have one meeting, you know, so that
Yeah,
that in camera meter, and we get your notes, my notes, and
Yeah.
everything else.
yes. And, but rather than all of us doing the same task on the notes, if I take a first crack at some of the stuff which is administrative, I'll send around a marked version. I'll need a Word version, hopefully we have one somewhere. I'll send around that and then we can use that as a starting point. So, no, and not everybody.
Keyboard made the change.
Yeah. You know, that computer, that black box.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Just wonder, all skates would, all took a shot at the last time, or if you would have an electronic version of it.
I'd be surprised we don't have one somewhere.
I can.
Oh,
Well, it's actually not complete.
It's,
No, so if you go to the bottom of some of the pages and then you go to the top of the next, it doesn't care.
well, this is actually like since the EDC split from the city, this is the second bylaw update. It was bylaw 13. Oh, yeah. This is 14.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that there's 2 bylaw updates since they took the EDC function. But I'll see what I have document wise and I'll.
Yeah, it's to be.
Is that a legal size paper? Remember,
Well-
originally it was on the wall.
It could be, it's just that a lot of them, like the first few are fine. And then as you get into the middle or later part of the document, the sentence at the end of the one page doesn't link into this. document. So, yeah. But anyway, the point is, why don't we try to get it to a place where we can realistically do a strategic review on it? We'll get all the administrative stuff taken, we'll get some notes on things that we want to look at. And then maybe at the next meeting, we can determine what the next steps are.
Who has the minute book of the corporation?
We would have it here. city would have them.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's in the management agreement that we need.
You have that.
Minutes.
That work? Okay. Okay, board vacancy, EDC appointee. So we have a vacancy on the board. It's, even though our bylaw doesn't indicate it, there are certain members that are populated through the board decision, and there are certain people on the board who are populated through the council's resolution and council's language, right? So in this case, it's one of the board's appointees. And the discussion at the exec the other day was, how do we want to go and do that? Do we recruit? Do we just post an ad? What do we want to do? I think we came to a conclusion that from the appointment process made sense. Together. But we really wanted to get everybody. Does that make sense? Well, that's it.
I don't know what I heard you actually.
Yeah, I get that a lot. Yeah, I pay her right times off. It's very different. Okay, Sam.
I'm reading it out.
So the thought is, there's two types of appointees. This is a board appointed position. So we choose at the end of the day who that person is as a board. And so how do we want to go about selecting it? And I think the recommendation or the discussion we had at exec was that we probably want it to be a transparent process. That's not how we do it. Right? And so the thought is to do some sort of a posting where, and we can encourage people to apply to that, right? But is that the way that you think makes the most sense?
Yes, I mean, I know, Paul called me and asked me if I'd want to do it. I don't know where to post it, but someone would do it. Yeah, it would be on, how would you post that?
Yeah. I think we had some ideas, right? Maybe do a LinkedIn posting or, I don't know.
I was gonna say the city, I'm sure communication staff could amplify through our social media channels and our
Yeah.
city, website, you know, that EDC is looking for a board member.
Okay.
Just to help in that awareness.
And I think we could do the recruiting like you were, Sam, by simply saying, whoever's interested, we know. You might want to look at this, and putting something in on this, but the concern would be if we do it as like an internal, we go and we think we want to ask Sam. And we go and we ask Sam, and then somebody from the outside says, how come I didn't have it? Yeah, I think that's a legitimate question.
Would there be certain qualifications you look for and you post it, or just an open thing where it wants to sit?
Yeah, I don't know that we're at the point where we're matured to, we have a skills-based board and we've analyzed those skills or those sorts of things, but I think it would be more the intangible stuff. Somebody who's, engaged in the community and understands some of the broader community concerns or some, that type of thing, right? Rather than a specific.
Then we come back to the board here, we would actually make that decision based on.
This board would make the decision. Yeah, and then we would select.
Sounds fair.
Tom, you could probably use the city's posting from last time, right?
Yeah, we can provide that content.
But
Yeah,
it can't be a city posting.
no,
right.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's a qualification for what we're looking for.
There you go.
But just on that, we don't have an email. Yeah. And we don't have a website, so website or email account, so, let's say you post it and send it. It'd have to go to you to us, or do we take the next step and say, we're gonna have an email account, info,
No, I think we have a contract with the city.
okay.
Where the city provides administrative services, the email can go to.
That's
it.
it.
And I think what we're trying not to do is have the city advertising for the position per se,
Yeah.
so we have to make it branded that it's CC, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Are we good with that?
Yeah.
Is that good next steps in terms of where we're going? Okay. All right, proposed schedule for meetings is in the, sorry, on the agenda. I think we're looking at every other month. Excuse me. With nothing in July. Excuse me.
When you talk loud.
It is. See, Sam?
And just as a qualifier on that, Rob, I think we still need to just, statement that there may be occasions if there are significant requests coming through that you need board support on, that there may be a request for a special meeting.
Yeah, and we'll schedule one based on a strategy session. Right? But I think what we wanted to do is to get the years in the calendar so that people can plan accordingly, right? It helps if they can. Find out. Okay, so that leads me to the last agenda item. Just adjournment. Bill, Sam, all in favor? Okay, appreciate it.
Thanks, Jerry. Enjoy your turkey dinner.
Thank you. I will try hard. Thank you very much.